Hello, welcome to Grandma B's Busy Life. I'm Brenda and my favorite people call me Grandma B. Today my kitchen is full of equipment because today we're making jam. I've been on a freezer clean out challenge since the beginning of February. And one thing I found in my freezer was lots and lots of berries. Strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, a bag of mixed berries. And so today I'm gonna make jam to use up some of those berries. And if you are interested in seeing my freezer clean out challenge playlist, I'm gonna link it in the description box below so you can check it out. If you enjoy this kind of video, please hit the like button and subscribe so that you can see more videos like this. So let's talk about equipment when you're canning jam. The biggest expense that you'll have is a canner. And you can get them at Walmart, but I don't know the cost. I think they're between $20 and $30. This is the one I use the most because it heats up the fastest. It's just a big stock pot. There's nothing special about it, other than it does have a little basket inside to hold the jars. You don't want the jars sitting right on the bottom of the pan because they can crack. So this just gives a little bit of a barrier so they're not sitting right on the bottom of the pan. And I like that it has a hook. I can put my jars on here and then drop them into the hot water. This is I found this at a thrift store, and it just has a little, it has a little tray in the bottom that just slides down into it, and the jars sit on top of that so that it can boil. Besides a canner, I have two canners out because I'm going to be making raspberry jam and mixed berry jam. I have a funnel, a canning funnel, and a jar lifter. This just opens so you can grab the jar out of the hot water and lift it out. These two items are not mandatory, but they make the job so much easier, and they're pretty inexpensive at Walmart. I also have a masher. It's a meat masher. You could use a potato masher just to mash the berries up. And my Ball Blue book. This is a very old book. I've probably had it for 20 years, but it's still called the same thing. It's the Ball Blue book. It gives you all of the recommended ways to can. I recommend you pick one up. You can also get a copy online. And then there's also all kinds of places you can go. You can go to your state's university extension. Every state has one, and it's your agricultural university that has an extension, and they will all have all kinds of recommendations for you on canning, especially for your altitude and climate. I also have my jars and my lids. These jars are jars that I've used before. I've washed them in the dishwasher so they're sterile. And then I also have a case of brand new ones. These are the 8-ounce jelly jars. You can make them in any size jar. I like this size jar. And then I have my rings and my lids. You cannot reuse your lids. So when they're brand new, they come with a new lid. After you've used it, you have to throw them away and get brand new lids. So everything in this bowl is brand new. And the rings are not, but all of the lids are brand new, and so they're ready for me. You used to have to boil the lids. You don't have to do that anymore. So if you're buying brand new lids, you don't have to boil them before you use them. Let's talk ingredients. Obviously, the main ingredient is the berries, and you can use any kind of berry. The next thing you need is pectin. This has 2 pouches in it, but I buy it at Walmart in a package that has 2 boxes in it, so there's 4 pouches in it. Each pouch is good for 1 batch. And that's the cheapest place I found it, but you can get it on Amazon also. And then you need sugar, lots and lots of sugar. And then one other thing that you need, it's not an ingredient, but it is a food item, is vinegar. The vinegar is to put in the pots. If you don't put vinegar in the pots, after your jars are in and you put vinegar in, it keeps them from getting a white, hard water spots on it. You may not need it in your area, but here in Utah, if I don't put vinegar in it, my jars come out covered in white and I have to wipe them all down. So it saves me a lot of work by putting the vinegar in. And that's it, that's all you need. All right, the first step is to get the raspberries into a bowl and get them all mashed up. So I'm just mashing up the berries. I don't always use frozen berries. The reason I'm using frozen berries, 2 reasons. Berries are really expensive right now, but the biggest reason is I am cleaning out my freezer, so I'm using my frozen berries. I like to, when raspberries are super cheap, I like to buy a ton of them and make all my jam for the year when the berries are cheap. The berries are all mashed. They're still slightly frozen, but it doesn't matter. And now I'm just going to get them, measure them out. The recipe calls for 4 cups of mashed berries. So the leftover raspberries will just go into my mixed berry jam so that they don't get wasted. All right, I'm going to turn my burner on to a medium high and add in 6½ cups of sugar. That's what makes it taste so sweet. Two. Am I the only one who has to count out loud? 3. If I don't say it out loud, I forget almost every single time. 4. 5. 6. And I'm just going to fill this about halfway full. It's okay if it's a tiny bit more or a tiny bit less. Now, I'm just going to stir this and cook it until it starts to boil, and then I'm going to let it boil for 3 minutes, and then I'll add the pectin. So I'm just going to let it go now, and as you can see, it seems really, really dry, like it's not going to all mix in, but it will. As it heats up, the sugar melts, the raspberries start to release some of their juices, and it becomes nice and juicy. Just before it starts to boil, you get this foam on top. I don't worry much about the foam. I just scrape it off before I put it into the jars. But if you do add a little pat of butter, it will make it so it doesn't foam. I don't like to do that because I sometimes sell my jam and I don't want to have dairy in there for customers that can't have dairy. So I just leave the foam on there, let it go. And then right before I put it in the jars, I just scrape the foam off the top and dump it out. It's up to a boil, so now I'm going to let it boil for 3 minutes, but don't walk away from it because you don't want it to boil out of the pot, so you want to keep a good watch on it, keep it stirred down, and you may need to reduce the heat so it doesn't boil over the top. It's boiled for 3 minutes. Now I'm just going to cut my package open and dump it all in at once. Most of the time this will make it stop boiling, but it doesn't always. Stir it in. It'll come back to a boil. Once it comes back to a boil, then you want it to boil for 1 minute. Okay, it's been boiling for 1 minute and I've turned the heat off, and it's going to take a minute for it to stop boiling. You don't want to put it in your jars until it's stopped boiling, but you want to put it in while it's still hot. So while I'm waiting for it to stop boiling, I'm just going to skim off the foam. I just run my spoon across the top and just pull the foam off. Okay, I've skimmed most of the foam off. You can see I didn't get all of it, but that's okay. It's not that much that will matter. So I'm going to put my funnel into my jar. And I just use my measuring cup, and pour it in. You want it within a 1/2 inch of the top. That's called headspace. So I need a 1/2 inch headspace. And all of the canning books tell you to measure that 1/2 inch. I never do. I always go based on the lines on my jar, and I fill it right up to this bottom ring. It's worked out for me, but you definitely can measure that to make sure it's exact. So I'm just going to go ahead and get all these jars filled up and come right back. All right, now I'm just going to clean off the outsides with a clean rag. Just wipe them all down because I spilled all over. Now that I've wiped down the jars, I have a little bowl of vinegar here, and I'm just going to dip my paper towel in the vinegar, and I wipe the tops. The reason you wipe the tops with the vinegar is it kills anything that's on there, but it also gets all of the food bits off so that the jars will seal properly. If there's any food bits on there, it just creates a little air space, and then the jars won't seal.
Why do you use a paper towel, not a rag?
I mean, I could get a clean rag, but you want to make sure it's clean. I wouldn't want to use the same one that I just wiped the jars down with because they have raspberry bits on them. So paper towel is just more convenient. Now I'm ready to put the lids on. And I just take my lids, set them on top, just finger tighten the band down. In my pot, I have hot water up to about here, and I'm just going to put the jars in on top of that rack. And you want to make sure the water comes about 1 inch above the tops of your jars so that they will seal properly. And I'm actually going to just set this aside for now until I get the mixed berries so that I've got a full pot to cook all of the jams together. All right, I got the mixed berry jam done. It's a little bit darker than the raspberry because it's got those blueberries in it. And I'm just filling this up so that all of the space that is available is used. So you can see that the water is about 1 inch above the jars. I'm going to turn this on high until it starts to boil and then turn it down just a little bit. I want it to be boiling for 20 minutes. I'm going to put the lid on, let it boil for 20 minutes and come back. I do have 4 jars left, but guess what? I went downstairs to get stuff out of the freezer for dinner and found 2 bags of frozen peaches. So I've taken those peaches and I've mashed them up, and I'm going to make them up into jam, and then I will process them with these 4 jars in the next batch. But before I cover this up, I wanted to mention that I do just pour a little bit of vinegar in, a couple of tablespoons, just to keep it from getting that white, hard water spots on the outside. Okay, so this is boiling. I'm going to set the timer for 20 minutes and let it boil for 20 minutes, and then it will be done. All right, in this pot I have the 4 mixed berry jams, and now I'm going to put the rest of the peach. I've got most of them in there. Look how good that looks. And remember that the water has to be hot in your pot. If you have cold water in the pot and then you put this hot jam in, your jars will crack. So make sure your water is hot. One way to do that is just to put the water in the pot and get it boiling while you're making your jam. Then when you turn the pot off, it stays hot long enough for you to get the jam in. So now I'm going to wait for this to boil. When it boils, I'm going to set the timer for 20 minutes and we'll come back at that point. It boiled for 20 minutes. Then I turned it off and I just let it sit lid on for several minutes. And then I pull it up to sit like this. I want the jars to cool down. Did you hear the ping? I love it. So the jars, I want them to cool down slowly. If I were to take them right out of the boiling water and set them on the counter, it's too much of a temperature shock and the jars could crack. I've never had that happen, but I know that it is possible. So I'm just going to take all my jars out and put them on the towel. Here are all the jams. Here's the raspberry jam and the peach jam. and the mixed berry jam. I just made labels on the Avery website with Avery labels because sometimes I give these away and it just looks nicer. Sometimes I sell them and it looks nicer than just writing on the top. So I make my little labels. Well, thank you for making jam with me. I also make a jalapeno jelly that is delicious. If you're interested in me showing you how I do that, just leave a little message in the comments and I would be happy to do that. And if you haven't yet, now's a great time to hit that subscribe button. Thank you for joining me. See you again soon. This box has 2 pouches in it. Each pouch is good for 1 full batch. But the package comes with 2 boxes, so there's actually 4 pouches in the box. Oh my. The next thing you need, is oh my God, chill. You're not helping.
I'm sorry. Okay.
All right, the bear.
Yeah, keep that part in.
So with these extra berries, I'm just gonna save them and I'll add them to my triple berry jam because there's raspberries in that jam. It's more than triple berry, there's 4 kinds of berries. I'll add it. So these less, at least I didn't say moist.
Now you did.
They're very hot. Thank you for making jam with me and